Hello, welcome to the GW Films Club. This is the podcast where I, Jordan Sorcery, and my good gaming friend Rob get together to talk about the films and books and other bits of media that have inspired Games Workshop and the designers, the artists, the writers who worked there in the creation of their games over the years. So we like to take a few quotes or citations for classic movies and then explore how we think they influenced the creation and evolution of those games. Today, we're talking about Alien and Aliens, the two classic sci-fi movies. Rob, you're a big Alien fan, right?
Yeah, Aliens more than Alien. I saw Aliens, and I probably didn't see Alien for about 5 years later.
Right.
Yeah, Aliens felt more in the... Like, I was of that generation where, for some reason, they produced toys for us, despite the fact it was like a ultra-violent film, which I know nowadays it's not particularly, but there was micro machines, I had a model kit of the APC before I'd even seen it and was trying to fit it into 40k. I had micro machines of the Nostromo. What a weird micro machine!
It was a classic era where action figures they just expand the lore as well, right? You just get this is an alien that
acid firing Ripley Hudson with real battle damage. Yeah, so I love them both, but Aliens more, I would say. But I'm not dropping that as a bombshell there or anything. It's just I have more fondness for Aliens than Alien. Alien is brilliant, obviously, but I do you know what it was? And this is a bizarre tangent immediately. We are but 2 minutes into this podcast, but my friend had I think what you'd nowadays call a mod, but I think it was like a .wad file for Doom and Doom 2, where it replaced all of the monsters with aliens, changed the sound effects of all the guns to the pulse rifle, but most importantly, when you open a door and the human baddies were there, they would all scream lines from the film.
No.
So, it would go, and you say, game over, man! And it's just like, everyone would just start firing, and, God, get them! Just stuff like that. It was brilliant. So I knew of Aliens before I even saw it, and way before I ever saw Alien.
That is, it's fantastic. I mean, I share that affection for Aliens. As much as I do love Alien, I think it's an amazing horror movie. It's a great science fiction movie. It is a brilliant introduction to the alien world, I guess. I know it wasn't intended to be a world necessarily at the time, but fantastic movie. But Aliens adds something that takes it to a whole new place, I think. It's terrific. It
speaks to the Warhammer fan.
It definitely speaks to the Warhammer fan. And of course, that is what we are here to talk about. So I've got a quote here from Rick Priestley that just talks about how Alien and the sort of design of the alien creature itself definitely played a role in the creation of Warhammer 40,000.
Mm-hmm.
Alien was very influential on the genre when it was released, picking up on the same dark, grubby, and dysfunctional aesthetic that lies behind Rogue Trader. Here is the only idea in 40k I can trace directly to the film, namely, the original Genestealers were inspired by the alien in Alien, and more precisely from a book about the making of the film in which the idea behind the alien was discussed in more detail. Of course, I took the idea and worked it into tabletop rules that allowed the alien to take over and reproduce in-game time. This made a really interesting scenario as the Genestealers tried to take over and reproduce as quickly as they could to overwhelm the opponent. However, when Genestealers were remodeled for the Space Hulk game, they would change in appearance as well as in rules terms, so as to be barely recognizable. Later, Brian would adapt the idea to suit his Genestealer Cults project, so what started out as something inspired by the idea behind the alien in Alien rapidly became its own thing. Yeah.
That all ties in. I love that scenario idea.
Isn't it fantastic? Yeah. And I went back to the rules from Rogue Trader to look at the
Yamargle Genestealer.
Yes, that's right. The original.
Yeah.
Some would say the best.
It's horrible.
It's really very creepy.
If no one's ever seen it, the original depiction of a Genestealer is, imagine your classic Genestealer, but instead of like the bulbous bug head, imagine the sandworm from Dune, sort of where its head would be. Brilliant. Totally alien in the...
Yeah, like a very literal alien design.
Or an awful, like, centipede millipede thing.
Yeah, it's horrid.
It would tear to pieces.
A leech-like face.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for, leech.
Really grotesque. But in the rules, the way it works was that it would actually attack, and when it did, it would implant an egg. And if you rolled a 6, that egg would then hatch later on. And then that would create the tiny little baby aliens that would run around the the board, which themselves would mature if they could get a certain number of kills. So as you were playing, the more damage you were doing, the more eggs you were implanting, the more infant Genestealers that were running around, then they're growing and implanting other creatures
fantastic.
as well. It's a really, really fun idea.
That'd be a really good one to play as a multi-stage scenario where you do the initial outbreak and then say 5 escape. You then dice to see which of those 5 get to maturity, and then the next scenario, there's 5 of them, and then you do it on and on. You could make it into a siege style war game where suddenly there's more and more of these things and your colony is really in trouble.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think it is really good fun as a scenario for Rogue Trader. Obviously, the game itself evolves in a very different way over time.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't work quite the same way. But as Rick Priestley mentioned, they were quickly redesigned, the Genestealers. So that kind of leechy, sort of vampiric version of the Genestealer, some of it was retained. And I think the sort of essential elements, I mean, the 4 arms and the Genestealer kiss, I suppose it would later become, right?
Yeah.
With Space Hulk, that was changed quite significantly. Design, they were redesigned by Bob Naismith and Jez Goodwin to be a more, chitinous kind of creature.
Yeah.
Like this armor, the sort of
more bug. I think the bug starts coming in at this point, doesn't it? They're overgrown beetles that would tear your face off.
Yes, but they have got like an oddly sort of humanoid face. I think,
which it derives from them coming from humans, right?
Right.
It's the old idea of what would a orc Genestealer look like? What would an Eldar? But then we sort of got that answered in the Tyranid.
I suppose
later, but
I think because the Genestealers that replace the ones from Rogue Trader, they become the default. That you see them in Space Crusade, you see them in Space Hulk. They become the standard Genestealer model. If you like.
Multi-pose, at least 2 sets of arms.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But those ones, they are encountered for the first time in the story, and they already look like that. So did they come from humans, or did they?
I always read it that they were probably.
Do you think there would be Genestealers out there that look more like orcs and Eldar?
I think the ones the Imperium runs into most are probably humanoid versions. I think there would be others.
Yeah.
Whether that makes sense or not, or whether maybe we come from the Genestealer. Who knows?
Goodness
maybe
me.
Humanity is a pure the fourth generation Genestealer that never develops. Yeah, who knows? It doesn't have to be us first.
Yeah.
And that's interesting as well, the redesign of the Genestealer in terms of canon, in terms of them not being anything to do with the Tyranid, to them being a beacon for the Tyranids, to now in some cases not. The latest depiction of them in Necromunda, they have no link to the Tyranid.
Yeah, that's right.
They are
the Secundus guy.
Yeah, Secundus Tyranid, Genestealer, which I love.
Yeah.
They have no link to the Tyranid hive.
Actually, those Secundus ones are, because they're all gribbly and gross, right? They are probably closer to the Rogue Trader Genestealer design.
I think Necromunda is the closest thing to Rogue Trader.
Yeah.
Modern Necromunda is closer to Rogue Trader than any edition of 40k has been since the publication of Rogue Trader. Like, they've gone, let's do that.
Yeah, let's put
ambles in it. Let's put zoats in it. We should probably talk about the films, though.
I think
at some point, everyone knows. You've all seen them, haven't you?
No, it's a good point.
Has anyone seen Alien Covenant? No one's seen Alien Covenant.
I guess then.
Have you seen Alien Covenant?
I've seen Alien Covenant.
Have you?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I do. I don't want to say I regret it because it all adds to the store of knowledge and culture that one absorbs. But I didn't enjoy it.
Okay, yeah, sure. How many times do you think you've seen Aliens?
38 simulated.
Oh, how many combat times?
Probably more than 38.
Loads of times.
A lot. Yeah, I mean it's a family favorite, I guess. Let's put it that way. But the story is a good point. The story of Alien that leads into Alien. So this is a group of truckers, space truckers, essentially on the Nostromo. They answer a distress call that comes from a planet. They are sent there by the company they work for to go and check it out. Turns out that it's a ship that has crashed, and there are loads of eggs on it, and those eggs yield aliens, essentially. Just one in the first movie, hence the singular.
The alien.
And that impregnates, essentially, the egg. There is a face hugger inside it, which is a very creepy sort of creature, which itself we would see a riff on that in the Citadel range with some of the early squigs.
Yeah,
I think.
oh, absolutely, yeah.
And that's what impregnates one of the crew members. They go back on the ship. the alien bursts forth, and then that is, what
Unleashes.
leads to a single alien wreaking havoc on the ship.
Yeah, it becomes almost a haunted house situation. Of
them
with being hunted down by.
It's a slasher movie as well.
It is 100% a slasher movie. It's so close to Texas Chainsaw. It's quite funny actually.
Sure.
But my God, what a film!
Incredible film,
and the imagery of it. Just even if you're not into the horror, just the look. That was a space that just looked real. And I think coming at the time it did, 1979, I want to say.
I think it's 79.
I want to say 79.
I forgot to check.
I'll keep riffing on this as if it's 1979.
Yeah.
You've started to have dirty sci-fi with Star Wars. People forget that Star Wars is an incredibly dirty film for its time. Compare it to 60s sci-fi of things like 2001, etc. But this took it to another level. Like, Star Wars is dirty. This is grim dark, basically.
Sure. Grub dark.
Everything looks crap. Nothing looks like it works. Everyone's smoking, which is brilliant, which for me is fantastic. I can watch a film now where, gods can destroy planets and civilizations rise and fall. Then someone lights up inside a house. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. That's illegal. But yeah, you've got this horrible road trip space trucker movie with an alien that, is just it's this immortal enemy. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It can't die, and that's always the scariest thing in a horror film.
Yeah.
Once you can beat it, rubbish.
Yeah.
Which Aliens suffers a little bit from, but I would say, because I think the alien, the xenomorph, I know there's arguments around whether it's called a xenomorph or not, or whether that's just blah 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 boring, has a little bit of Dalek syndrome, where one of them is terrifying and cool. You might want to call it ninja syndrome as well. 100 of them are shit and fall to pieces. You can just blow them to pieces, at range kind of thing. So I do think that's my only gripe with something like Aliens. But
you think that's replicated on the tabletop?
Yes, I think that's replicated on the tabletop in terms of everything.
Right. From
Genestealers to Space Marines. One Space Marine is cool. 10 Space Marines get wiped out by a single Lehman Russ battle tank. It's like,
It's impossible to balance for the story.
Exactly. It's the Starship Troopers problem, Yeah, so replicating something like that on the tabletop would be difficult, I think. But that's where then Aliens comes out. And Aliens is the next film. And in this case, the bug that Ripley... Well, it's the planet that they initially went to rescue that ship full of alien eggs. Humanity's conquered it. Oh, hey, we win. We win, guys. And build a colony on it. And sure enough, the colony runs into trouble. And Ripley, who has survived through decades because of cryogenic sleep, is brought in as a special advisor for a team of Marines who are going to go in and sort out the problem. And there the franchise ends. After 2 films. That's the end of the Alien franchise. No, the assembly cut's good.
It's certainly a terrific double shot, right? The two aliens. So I think the villain, the real antagonist that's demonstrated throughout
don't say his name.
Both movies turns out to be the company, right? So in
Burke so much.
In the first movie, you get the idea that there's a distress call. Would the Nostromo have gone off and actually investigated it if they hadn't been instructed by the company they work for? And then in the sequel, the planet was conquered, like you say, it was being colonized. Again, at the behest of this company, they knew what was there, and they've still decided to go.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of, this is one of the satirical aspects of Rogue Trader in particular, and maybe later 40K, where you do have these sort of institutions that are willing to risk everything, they don't care about the individual human life in pursuit of a greater goal that they might have.
They'll sacrifice any amount of humans to save humanity.
Sure.
And that's 40K through and through. The Weyland-Yutani, is that right?
Yeah, Weyland-Yutani.
Weyland-Yutani is, like a precursor to the High Lords of Terror or whatever, where it's just like, we need to do some bioweapon, tests. Well, there's a planet. Fucking we don't need them anymore, so let's drop a load of nids on it and see what happens. Yeah, absolutely, that sort of... I think there's 2 ways to look at it, actually. I think the callousness of the company is replicated in 40K. I also think the incompetence of the company is replicated in 40K, that maybe actually they didn't know what was on LV-421 or whatever when they set up. And they were
dramatically underestimated, like sending 1 squad of Marines.
Yeah, there's that. But even just like they set up this colony, and then they look in the files and go, oh yeah, look, 50 years ago they said don't set up a colony on this. Like, you almost feel like the bureaucracy gets in the way, and they've already made a mistake, 100 years earlier, and it's too late now.
I mean, that's 40k.
That's
in a nutshell, right? The comma in the wrong place, or a file that was not opened
condemned
for 1,000 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really important theme of 40k, that a lot of the evil of the Imperium comes from incompetence. Yeah. It's purely a case of, oh, look, this planet's fallen. Okay, well, should we send a guard regiment? No, it fell 500 years ago. And it's like, oh, right, okay, like, guess they all died then. guess everyone on that planet is dead. That's very Weyland-Yutani, where it's just like, well, we'll get around to it at some point.
Here is an esoteric bit of factual information from the making of Alien that I thought was quite interesting. So, costume designer John Molo and concept artist Ron Cobb, who were working on the original Alien, actually created like a load of different badges and patches for the crew to wear.
Okay.
That were sewn onto their uniform. Mm-hmm. One of those, so that included Weyland-Yutani badges and patches and stuff. But one of them was for something called the Red Star Line, which itself is a reference. But then they had notes in the design sketches for that patch for the Red Star Line that said that company was bought out by another company called the White Dwarf Complex.
Dun, dun, dun.
And allegedly, and there's some conjecture about whether or not that's a direct reference to White Dwarf.
No, it is.
Well, White Dwarf started 2 years earlier, so it was 77.
Yeah.
And there are people online who think that maybe this was the concept artist, the costume designer sort of saying, well, let's put a little reference into this cool sci-fi fantasy magazine.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, I mean, for our purposes...
Well, I'm putting it down as fact. I'm putting down that as fact. It's almost to put this episode onto Wikipedia, reference it as a fact.
Yeah.
Done. Sorted.
Yeah, citation.
Done citation, Rob. 2024.
I mean, it is interesting. I think it speaks to... I mean, we'll see this with White Dwarf in particular for a good 100 issues over the next decade or so, where it would feed back into sci-fi and fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
So it was commenting on a lot of stuff, but because it was looking at books, it was looking at games, tabletop stuff across the board. You were getting, I think, people who were being influenced by White Dwarf in the same way Games Workshop was being influenced by all this other stuff.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Oh, surely. Yeah, absolutely. It's the classic thing of the Human League being named after an RPG and stuff like that. Yeah, the pop band named after a faction in a science fiction board game.
Right. I didn't know this.
The Human League are a science fiction faction in a science fiction board game. There's loads of little stuff like that. All these references where people who... The Expanse. The Expanse is someone's Traveller campaign, basically. Yeah. There's no way that people who aren't involved in creating these universes weren't themselves influenced by... Yeah,
definitely. Loop. I mean, we know, obviously, Rick Priestley, Richard Halliwell, these guys were being influenced by historical war games when it came to designing rules. They were being influenced by Tolkien and Howard and his Conan stuff. So we know there's that. In Rogue Trader itself, in the book, Rick Priestley talks about how the setting of 40k that he'd created was based on the games he was playing with his friends, which were themselves influenced by Dune and Alien and lots of other stuff.
Yeah, I think something like Traveller is a great example of that. Traveller literally is Alien, the role-play game. It was everything. It's Star Trek, the role-play game. It's Alien, the role-play. It's a very blank canvas of a sci-fi game. But just looking at how it presents its space, it's very... Alien, down to the distress call on the front cover of the first rule book about the, which is fantastic, something about, I think it's the frigate Behemoth, it's very, very reminiscent of Ripley's call from the Nostromo. And then Traveller fed into Starfarers, which fed into Laserburn, which fed into 40k, it's all a massive zeitgeist of, whoa, look at all this stuff, Alien plus Star Wars plus whatever's going on at that time.
Well, I mean, I've got another quote.
My God.
Right, yeah, we're rolling in there.
My God.
This one is from John Blanche in the Rat Spike art book, which would have come out at the same time, roughly, that Aliens was coming out in 82. So he said that the first images of primeval man would concern themselves with hunting scenes, heroic action, mighty beasts, death masks, war paint, fetishes, and trophies. Today, we see the same sorts of themes represented in punk haircuts, studded leather, and even in the imagery employed in films like Blade Runner and Aliens. This is the heritage of a Western culture, and this is what I am trying to tap into when I paint. Which I think is quite interesting. Yeah. I mean, obviously name-checking Aliens in the context of the sort of broader cultural
movement,
like you mentioned there.
That is an interesting one because stylistically, I don't know. I suppose you've got that with Blade Runner. You sort of you can look at something and think that looks Blade Runner-y, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at modern pictures of Beijing or even like a city like Manchester, which is throwing up these great towers in the mist, and you look at it and you think, yeah, that looks like Blade Runner. Alien's an interesting one to call up as stylistically because I think I can't think of an example, if that makes sense. Maybe the alien itself.
Interesting you say. I mean, obviously, Giga's Alien 100% is iconic, and we've seen other designs that have been influenced by it. Genestealers is one of them, of course.
The film Species.
Well, I mean, which also was a different Giga design, I think.
Was it?
I believe so.
I was being facetious.
Well,
I didn't know that.
I think it was, but I'd need to double check.
Next time, we're covering the film Species 2 and 3.
But I think the thing with Aliens and its design is that it became so commonplace. So that sort of militaristic, the kind of grubby, very practical. Let's put an aircraft carrier from the 80s in space, and give them like sci-fi technology.
Do you know what? Yeah, figure out the Space Marines in that are not ray gun toting space. They're just Vietnam dudes, aren't they? Dropped into space,
which we then see. 40K being the prime example of raiding that toolbox.
Yeah, 100%. Actually,
Catachans might as well be straight out.
Cadians, everything.
Cadians are straight out because the Imperial Guard. There's huge amounts of Imperial Guard imagery taken from Aliens,
which I really don't like.
Right,
I don't like the way the Guard are very high tech and tactical. I think is the term used on the internet.
So you prefer it when it was closer to an Aliens style?
No,
I want even lower technology.
Okay, yeah. The Guard should look like the Russian army in the Second World War. In my head, it should be a boiler suit with a las gun with 10 rounds.
Right.
Good luck to the front.
I'm sure there would be some. There'd be many worlds.
That would be for me. That should be the default Guard.
I get you.
Maybe the Cadians are a bit more highly equipped because they're at the edge of it all.
Right.
But for me, the Guard would just be. It'd be almost Napoleonic. Here's your rifle. Off you go.
Sure.
All you need is faith in the Emperor, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You don't need training. You've got faith.
Yeah, flintlock versus power armor.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. I think actually the Alien Space Marine is too high tech for the Imperium.
I mean, that's an interesting. I'm not sure I would necessarily agree. I quite like the Imperial Guard having that Alien Marine style sort of that because I still think that technology in a world of power armor, chainswords, psychic powers. Yeah, it's not up to scratch. Like for me, the difference would be that an Imperial Guard army would be 10 men for every one Space Marine.
Oh yeah,
like the scale of an Imperial Guard army, even in a regular game of 40k, 1,000 points or 2,000 points would just fill the table.
Aliens in 40k, they would have just sent a battalion of Guard in. They would have just charged the
whole
Athlete's
planet.
Hope. Yeah, they would have. There would be more Guard than there were eggs. They'd be like, you can't impregnate us all.
That would absolutely be the Zap Brannigan way.
Yeah,
just wave after wave of Imperial Guard.
And they just drive tanks over them and go, that'll do. There we go, we've won everyone.
Yeah.
Shoot everyone involved in this in case of taint.
Just on that, the idea that Imperial Guard borrow liberally from Aliens. I did come across the 1987 Imperial Army range.
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, fantastic. Ali Morrison
helmets,
sculpts, really fantastic models. The RTB-05s.
Yeah.
They've actually got a Sergeant Hicks.
Oh, yeah.
And a female trooper called Vasquez.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many references in that range.
Yeah.
All the music references in there. Just fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
But they are aliens through and through.
Yeah. I mean, even that.
There's a Ripley, really. I don't think it's named Ripley, but there is a female guardsman with quite Sigourney Weaver-like hair.
I feel like there was. I can't remember what range it was. Whether it was even maybe the Timescape, the Talisman miniature, or something like that. One of the odd
Iron
ranges
Claw or something like that
had a very Ripley-esque character.
Yeah.
I could be mistaken. But
no, there was.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I've seen her about.
I think Iron Claw did some Space Pirates as well. And there were some very alien.
Oh yes, it could have been that.
Them. But yeah, no, female guardsmen have been there since the beginning. So
the more recent anniversary model for the Imperial Guard, Ripper Jackson, was also Vasquez, essentially.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, Vasquez is quite an iconic character, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned Catachans before, because to me they're way more Predator.
I think, for sure, I would say there is Predator. Yeah. Yes, of course, that's in the mix. Yeah. I do think there is a healthy dose of like Hudson-esque.
Gung-ho.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they've all died.
They might not have the same armor.
Yeah.
That's definitely Cadian.
Yeah.
But I do think Catachans borrow a little bit, personally.
Cockiness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they just all die. Just get dragged into the jungle and die.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think, in terms of technology, do you think there's anything from Aliens, I guess, more than Alien, that kind of makes its way onto the tabletop? Whether that is the APC?
There is, and in order to do that, we need to talk about the great big hulking elephant floating slowly through space in the room, which is, of course, Space Hulk.
Yeah.
Because Space Hulk is Games Workshop's attempt at doing Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Takes a bit of a twist, I think, the moment you introduce the Terminators into it.
Right.
Because actually, it's not very Aliens in that way, because the Marines that go in to the Space Hulks are... So for those not familiar with Space Hulk, which I don't believe is possible, if you're listening, if you are 5 episodes deep into this podcast, but it's Marines going into these great big floating wrecks in space, giant ghost ships. Basically, they go in. Turns out they're full of Genestealers, and they go in basically for a variety of reasons. Usually to look for technology, sometimes just to shoot aliens because kill the Xenos. But actually, it's interesting because what they send in is the elite. They send in the best of the best of the best. They send in the Terminators in their armor, which is hundreds of years, if not thousands of years old. Which for me actually almost stops it feeling like an alien simulator, because if you sent in the Guard, it would feel like Aliens. And obviously, since day one, people have been trying to put the Guard into Space Hulk. Yeah. Like, that's just, everyone did that. Everyone had that same idea when they were 13 years old. You went, hey, what if we put a Genestealer in Necromunda, and what if we put the Guard in Space Hulk? Wow, no one else has ever thought of that. That's amazing.
To be fair to all the 13-year-olds, though, it is a pretty cool idea.
But the Terminator then actually, I think, stops it from being too Aliens-like.
Yeah.
But to go back to the original question of the technology, yes, because what is the main mechanic for the alien player to do anything in Space Hulk? It's to move around with your hidden aliens, which are represented by blips.
Yeah.
And the blips are 100% the motion tracker from Aliens, which is just a perfect sort of useless piece of technology to build tension. Like, it's a piece of crap.
The worst possible. Gives you no indication of where these things are. You get a distance.
Yeah,
roughly, but you can't tell how many they are because it's such a blurry image. You can't tell what elevation they're on.
Surely it's picking up the other members of your squad.
Absolutely.
And obviously it's got a way. Like, the guy using it is at the front, but look at Hudson. He's whipping around as fast as he can. It's just spinning. It's like, this is useless. It was really well done in the AVP video game, the first ever one, the computer game, which was so scary. And I was a Colonial Marine, and there was a blip going on my finger, and I was just like, oh God, what is it? I realised it was the lift going up and down. And it's like, well, yeah, this is what a piece of junk.
I think the thing is, you rightly call out though that as a piece of technology, it's not that helpful. No. In terms of design, the sound design in the movie is perfect.
It's a heartbeat. It's a heartbeat, isn't it?
It's mechanical heartbeat,
God, yeah.
But then it also does raise the tension in the movie scenes enormously, because you are right there with Hudson. You are afraid that this thing is coming. It's getting closer. The beeps are getting closer together. In the game, you also get a degree of that tension building through the blips. Yeah. You've got blank blips in some of the editions. You've got different numbers. You don't know how many Genestealers are actually coming for you. And they could be round the corner and they're progressing towards it. It is a fantastic way of creating that sense of tension.
Yeah, moving with blinds is a really good way of doing that. Absolutely. I would actually say, I think second to Star Wars, the sound design of Aliens and Alien is maybe the best in sci-fi.
Incredible. The pulse rifle as well.
Yeah. Or just everything, like literally everything. The door opening is an amazing noise. The bulkhead opening sounds amazing.
Like, the Alien sounds amazing.
Because the Alien, it's hard to replicate. And that's what's really cool. Like, it's not an alien. It doesn't go like, rawr, It makes a sort of squeal. But you can't do that. I don't think a human male mouth.
I'm sure it's out there.
That.
What they actually did use, because it feels like there may be some cat noises in there.
Yeah,
somewhere.
They sound like cats. They sound like tires screeching. They're just a brilliant thing, and that's great. Even the hissing of the alien queen, the sort of heavy breathing.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic.
It is brilliant.
I've seen the alien queen.
Yeah,
in Lyon. There's a fantastic museum in Lyon where a guy who worked on loads of films has collected all his props over the year.
Right.
So he's got like the head from Terminator that he, when he's doing the self-repair.
Right.
He's got prosthetics from Buffy. He's got some of the Tim Burton Gotham buildings.
Amazing.
And the Batwing, the model of that. And he has the fully animatronic Alien Queen.
Wow.
Because it was a puppet originally, fully puppeted. And then for Resurrection, spoilers, the Alien Queen goes back and they put in animatronics to do some of it. And so you go into this room and the Alien Queen's just there looking at you and breathing. It's terrifying.
Wow.
It's absolutely brilliant.
No, you have to be careful because you're going to get me wistful for the missed opportunity of the Trocadero Centre in London Alien War experience that was there briefly in the 90s.
The true Alien. I heard Ridley Scott say this is the best. This is the one he always wanted to do.
Well,
You've not seen Alien Romulus. It's just someone walking around Alien War. With the Trocadero with the handycam. Then they go to M&M World.
Who doesn't know, this was in central London at sort of an arcade centre. They actually had an Alien experience where you could go. They decked out all of the area. They'd done set dressing to make it look like it was an alien colony or from the movie Aliens. And you would walk around it. There were actors portraying all of the different
it was real.
Marines.
It was real.
You would basically be ushered in and taken on essentially it was on rails in the sense that they were role-playing as NPCs. You were going to go from A to B to C through this different sort of maze-like experience. And there were costumed actors in the alien get-up who would come out of the walls or get shot at by the actors who were playing the Marines. Incredible. The adverts are amazing.
Like a haunted house. It's one of those really elaborate haunted houses,
exactly
right?
that.
Yeah.
And ahead of its time, I would say. I never got to go on this. The advert for it was captured on the VHS tape that we recorded of the Aliens director's cut off of Sky Movies Gold.
Oh, wow.
So we could watch the Alien War
Murdoch dollars there.
But we never got to go. Did get to go through the entranceway in the Trocadero because that stayed long after the experience closed down.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Did you ever go on the Aliens simulator ride at Granada Studios?
I did go on that as well.
Good,
yes.
That was good. You got to be the APC, getting thrown around. That was well good.
But yeah,
I heard Ridley Scott say that's the Aliens he always wanted to make.
The Manchester Granada Studios
one.
tour.
Yeah, he said this is it. And when he did Covenant, he was like, this isn't as good, is it?
He also enjoyed the RoboCop ride that they had there.
They had a RoboCop.
They did.
Ride.
Yeah, they did.
Are we going to do RoboCop on this?
I mean, potentially, if there are any citations, if we can find anybody who talks about RoboCop in the context of Games Workshop development, then I think every movie is up for grabs, Rob.
Can we do Steel Magnolias?
If Rick Priestley or anybody else who worked
Rick Priestley,
on
if you're in the comments, if you could mention Steel Magnolias and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, just so we can get them in somehow.
I mean, that's going to be a rough weekend, I think.
Both of those at the same time. Same time.
Looping back
looping back to Aliens.
To what you were saying about Space Hulk, though.
Yes.
You talked about the idea that everybody had. They bring in the Imperial Guard and you sort of tackle it slightly differently. There is obviously a sibling to Space Hulk in Space Crusade, which also really centers the Genestealers. They're not the only enemy in there, but they are in there alongside Orcs, alongside traitor Marines and others. That does have regular Marines instead of Terminators.
Yep, got your power armor boys.
You're a little bit closer to an alien.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only do you have that, one, the Genestealers were terrifying in that because they did not appear as blips, ironically. They would only spawn via the cards at the alien command cards. I can't remember what they're called. Maybe they're just called alien cards.
Yeah.
They would just pop out and then 4 red dice in close combat. Schnick, schnick, schnick. There goes your Marine. Of course, later on, once Mission Dreadnought came out, the Marines got the tarantulas, which were basically the sentry guns of 40k they got to move around, which were very weird. It was weird that they walked around with this gigantic. I think they came up with the model, and then they were like, oh, how does this work? Like, it didn't have tracks on it or anything, so it was very strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the Space Crusade probably was almost closer to Aliens, despite the fact of being full of non-gene stealers.
Yeah, lots of other creatures as well.
The Guard did turn up in Advanced Space Crusade as well. You could send
and you
those
also
poor
had
buggers into the
Scouts, which is again even closer to
even lower sort of level. You send the Scout.
Ironically, though, Advanced Space Crusade had dropped the Gene Stealers were not a central feature.
No, they came. You could include them. It was very Warhammer Quest in that you could include anything from the Tyranid army in it, but it was the Warriors, which the Warriors are an interesting one. Those original Warriors are almost closer to the Alien in some ways, like the long head than the Gene Stealer, but because they don't have the whole reproductive cycle, which is arguably one of the most important bits of the Alien, if not the most important bit, they never quite felt the same. The Tyranids never, you never sort of looked at them and went, oh, that's a Aliens rip-off. A little bit.
I mean, that's a very interesting point.
No, I'm going to contradict myself there and actually say no, because then the Hive Tyrant and the Warriors, particularly the second generation ones, are very much the Alien Queen.
I think the Hive Tyrant is. I think that's fair to say. I was going to say about the Tyranid Warriors, they remind me of the firstborn alien from Alien Resurrection.
Interesting.
In a way.
Interesting.
Just in that they're awkward-looking creatures.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I shall say no more.
But the point you make about, whether or not Giga's designs are reflected in the wider Tyranid range, certainly later
just
on.
willies. Everything's just a big willy.
I mean, there's certainly there's obviously a certain amount of that in his designs.
Yeah,
there isn't, because I think there would have been an argument. I'm sure there must have been a discussion at some point when they were redesigning the Tyranids from what they were in Rogue Trader to what they would later become.
Yeah,
in second or third edition 40k.
Yeah,
where you could have said, let's make these really like the Alien. Let's really lean into that even more than we did. I don't think they did really. The Hive Tyrant, like you say, yes, it's got a Alien Queen feel to it.
I think they did.
You think they did?
The Termagant and the Hormagant.
Right.
With their long sort of protrusions, particularly the Hormagant. If you look at the Hormagant, that looks like a xenomorph.
Right.
It's interesting because the first generation of Tyranids, technically Rogue Trader, but by that point, really, it was first edition 40k. I don't want to get into that. There's a whole argument that Rogue Trader was dead by 1989, really, and then until second edition, it was first edition 40k. But can't bother getting into that. That first range of Tyranids is weird because it's the plastic Genestealers, the plastic Tyranid Warriors, the Carnifex, which looks like neither, the Hunter Slayers, which are only available in metal and tiny and look really weird, and one that's pointing, doing a weird little Jesus symbol. Anything else of it? And then Squigs, and then they're weird because the Squigs are incredibly orky in a lot of sense, and in fact could be taken by the Orcs as well.
Yeah.
Mind slaves are a major part of the race at that point. Tyranid mind slaves are a whole thing. Zotes. Genestealer cults are pretty much built into it. So it's very weird, the first one.
Yeah.
The big redesign comes with Space Marine, with the Tyranid supplement for Space Marine, where you get gargoyles, you get Hormagants, what we would now recognise. The Hive War, exactly. You get the Hive Tyrant appears there. You get things that have now gone, such as the Dominatrix and stuff, but the beginning of Tyranids is there. And I think they took cues from Alien at that point. I think the Hormagant are, I think the Termagant are.
Right.
I then think when they redesigned them around 2000, I wonder if they sort of made a conscious decision then to move away a little
more
bit.
IP, sort of respecting other IPs.
And easier to copyright for yourself. Yeah. So I think the next generation are a bit less. They are bugs.
Yeah.
And bugs can only get you so far in terms of, people always say, the Starship Trooper bugs. Actually, the Clandathu, bugs don't look anything like Tyranids, but for some reason everyone's like, they're Tyranids.
I think because they act like
a swarm of bugs, right? I think if you use a swarm of bugs analogy, you're going to come up with similar things. Of course, there's the brilliant line in Aliens about, are they bugs? Is this a bug hunt? Is it bees or beads? Bees.
Beads have hives.
Beads have hives. I think, I don't know, I think GW tried to move away from them just being an insect swarm.
Yeah, I mean, even that though, like Hive War was the name of the expansion, and a hive bees.
Bees have hives.
Bees have hives.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I would say no. I think the first generation design proper is quite alien.
Yeah.
And then they've
that's fair. You've convinced me.
Away.
You've convinced me with this argument.
Yeah, I'm good at that.
Yeah, the squig point was just that when you take the grabber smasher squig.
Yeah, is that what it's called?
Smasher grabber?
Smasher, something weird, grabber slayer or something.
That is, it's like a face on an arm.
It's horrible.
a very Trogdor kind of vibe to it.
Shout out to the internet, 2004.
But that has a real, that feels like it's come from the face hugger.
I think that's come from the Thing.
Actually, yes, you're also you've convinced me with this argument.
It is quite basic. With the face hugger, you've got those Necromunda things, haven't you? You've got the razor wings and stuff like that.
Ripper jacks.
Yeah, Ripper jacks stuff. They to me always spoke more.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The face hugger. Actually, I think the squigs are more like the Thing.
Yeah, actually, you're dead right, and I regret what I've said.
We're ending the channel. That's the end of Jordan's Sorcery, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the idea of bringing, you mentioned before just the grubbiness, and I think Rip Priestley mentioned the grubbiness of Alien and how that informed the grubbiness of the 40k universe. Yeah. I think that is something that I would argue is maybe been lost a little bit in 40k as it's progressed.
Interesting.
Because you don't see the sort of mismatched designs. Like you were saying about the Tyranids, they're all a bit mismatched and they're a bit odd. You saw that with the Imperial Guard. They were
one regiment at a time kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's a bit more uniform.
Yeah.
Like literally.
Yeah.
And metaphorically, I guess. So everyone is in uniforms. Everyone is wearing the same. The Tyranids, when they did that later redesign, they all had the same kind of chitinous armor. They all looked the same. The Genestealers reflected the Tyranids as well.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that because I think how the design process is different now. It's not a case of someone rocking up and going, "Hey, I've just designed this squad of guard. What do you think?" Those guard regiments, the ones that some of us think back very fondly, are very much the Perry twins going, "I want to do some Napoleonic dudes. Oh look, it's the Mordians. I want to do some desert dudes. Look, it's the Talan." Sort of rocking up to the design studio and saying to the design studio, "Hey, write rules for these or put these guys in." And so you had ranges that have developed over time, never got all their miniatures in a lot of cases. Whereas now the idea of launching the Tyranid without everything being ready is not possible anymore, I don't think. It's not possible, it just wouldn't be done that way anymore. So I would agree, there is a loss of that. And I think when you are trying to make a strong IP, faction building is as important as world building. Well, faction building is part of world building.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just a Games Workshop thing, if that's a fantasy and science fiction in general thing. You look at the design work behind things like Dune, the latest Dune film, like the amount of work that went into just uniforms and stuff to make sure everyone looks all right, compared to just Patrick Stewart just turning up on the day. I don't know, I'm sort of rambling, but I think there's more of a professionalism now around things like this, and where a lot of things are taken into consideration that didn't used to be. I think a lot of it is in reaction to fandom as well, because
there's no room for a faction to grow and evolve over time.
No, I think there is. I think release-wise, no, because now everything has to be ready to go.
The entire codex has to be
ready
launched
in one go. You don't get the whole thing of, we've released the Imperial Guard Codex, and this month the Lehman Russ is coming out, and in 3 months the Chimera is coming out, and in 3 months the Hellhound's coming out. Now everything's available day one because it has to be,
or in a couple of waves,
most a couple of waves, because it's too big now not to do that. But I do just think that kind of bodging together has sort of gone away in a lot of things, because I think it's easier now to archive things. It's easier now for a fan to look at something and go, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't look like the rest of it. Why doesn't that look like the rest of it? Because everything now is on the internet and forever and archived. And I think there is that sort of expectation that things should look right. I don't know where I'm kind of going with this. This has gone a little bit rambly. Well, and it's more sort of
not to lead us even further astray. But I think part of that loss, because my point about the grubbiness, the sort of the mismatched nature of armies and designs and things like that. Though it felt like in an older version of these games, it was easier to kit bash or to army bash and just put together all kinds of bits of nonsense.
Yeah, you've said this, and I think I don't agree.
You don't agree?
I do not agree with this at all, actually.
Right.
I would argue now it's certainly easier to kit bash because
everything's plastic.
Everything's plastic.
Yeah, I think we did talk about that.
Yeah. Look at Necromunda in 1995, look at it now. You've got a ganger who's got an auto gun and you want to swap it for a shotgun. Good luck.
Right.
Because he's a bit of lead holding that to his chest. The only way you could ever do weapon swaps is if they were stood like fucking He-Man with their arms out. You know?
Necromunda was particularly egregious because it demanded that you had different weapons in your gang, and they changed, but the miniatures didn't allow for it.
I think what's interesting, I think there's been a bit of a false narrative formed over the years. This is my thinking. Please put in the comments if you don't agree. I don't care, but put it in the comments if you don't agree.
We read every comment.
We read every comment. Oh my God, I read everything on the internet. If you ever read Wikipedia, it's massive. I've only done B so far.
Bees have hives.
Bees have hives. Bees. So you've got this narrative that, in the past, everyone converted whatever they wanted and played with what they wanted, and it was great, and there was free LSD and everyone was having a great time and Hendrix was playing. It's not true. There's always been arseholes involved in 40k who would say, actually, you can't do that.
Of course.
Way back in the day. And you can do it just as much now. I know every unit has a copyrighted name now, so it seems more difficult. You can't just do Chaos Warrior with Spear. It has to be a Dark Oath Warrior with Dread Spear or Marine avec. Marine with Flamer Bolter, and but those names, the names that we're used to now, were stupid in the past, and people were doing just as much. Oh, it doesn't matter what he's got back then.
I mean, that's
just
certainly
think
fair.
There's become. I think while tournament gaming has become not the dominant style of play, I refuse to believe that tournament gaming is the dominant style of play. I believe it's the most talked about style of play. So people think, well, if they, you can't convert because you got to play it in a tournament. Even that's not true. Some of the most wacky and wild armies you will see at tournaments, they are amazing what people do.
Yeah.
Counts as has always been a thing. People just fielding any old crap on the board and saying, oh yeah, do you know what, that's a night. I remember there being Coke cans on the battlefield which were meant to be rhinos, butter tubs that was a Lehman
Listen,
Russ,
I would hate to be accused, Jordan Sorcery, would hate to be accused of leaning into the nostalgia of things.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, sure, yeah.
But
yeah,
I mean, it's a fair point, and that you can still do any of that you want to, and that there is still a culture of that, and there was a culture against it in certain places and certain people in the past.
God, yeah.
I guess what I really mean is things feel a bit more formalized.
Yeah.
And the way they're talked about, or the way that they're sold, even, that's a bit more formalized, 100%. And you have a little bit less of that loosey-goosey kind of approach that existed, certainly in Rogue Trader. Obviously, it was being ironed out throughout the 90s and the noughties.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's been around until recently. It's been on its way out for the entire time. But I think you maybe see it in the Alien franchise.
Yeah, sure.
Well,
right, yeah.
Where you've gone from the ability to, the Alien works so well in the first movie.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows what it is. Including the characters. But the audience doesn't know either. So you get to explore it and you're sort of finding out about it. Oh, wow, it's got alien. I was going to say, it's got alien for blood.
It's got alien for blood.
It's got acid for blood. That's an incredible thing that we've just discovered. And now that's going to sort of, the challenge has been raised even higher. In Aliens, they're exploring it in a different way. What happens when you put loads of these things together? What happens when you've got equipment? Yeah.
What laid the eggs?
And then as we progress further into the franchise, you almost run out of interesting things to answer, and you have to start answering questions that nobody's asking or cares about. Maybe you could say there's a bit of that, with 40k.
Oh, 100%. The frontier's gone. The frontier has gone, and that is what happens to all science fiction that is plundered. And, Star Trek. The first Star Treks are very like, oh, cool, what's a Romulan? Oh my God, they look just like a Vulcan. By the 10th film, oh, look, there's not just Romulans, there's Remulans. That's just the nature of a universe that gets massive. It's the same with Lovecraft.
It is.
Read early Lovecraft. What's this about? Then by the time August Derleth gets his hands on it, it's like, well, the Migo come from Jupiter and
classified.
Exactly. And that is the fate of everything that fans like.
Yeah.
Because you go from that's cool to I want to read about this to I don't like that there's now 50 books about this and I don't like that everyone likes Iron Man now and everyone knows what Iron Man's mark of armor is. I liked it when he was a guy in the 60s fighting communism.
Yeah.
I used to like Iron Man. Then the films ruined it. He was cool. He was just a guy with a case and he had to keep getting to a plug. It was really good. Every episode would issue would end and he'd be like, oh, I'm running out of power. I must find a plug. And he'd have his little attaché case. And they ruined it and put a thing in his heart and it was rubbish. Then
let me ask you this, just to get
Circle
back
to Avengers. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would have liked to have seen explored? Ironically, I'm going to go the other way now.
Ooh.
Is there anything that is in the movies that you would have wanted on the tabletop? A power loader or...
Oh, okay. Not really, no.
Because I've got one.
Let me. You can't spring that at me. Go on, you tell me yours.
So one of the ideas, and it's quite subtle in the movie, and it's kind of underplayed, but it's the smart guns, the smart rifles, which are AI-assisted targeting rifles. Basically, the gun is on
it's on a
gimbal,
harness. It's on a it's a Steadicam.
It is a Steadicam that they've then put a gun on instead of a camera.
Correct.
So, and the idea being that this is a really heavy weapon, and in order for a human to use it, they need the extra arm to keep it in place about their person, and then it's also targeting using this bit of AI that's helping them make sure they're hitting their shots. I feel like that kind of technology is about in the 40k universe, whether it's Tau, and marker lights or AI assisted whatever's.
So what if I told you there was such technology in Rogue Trader?
Okay, go on. Hit
there
me.
were suspensors which were used as sort of almost like they were anti-grav generators, which they were similar to those used in hover vehicles, and they're 10 centimeters across, small little things. They're described as flat like a yo-yo, which what an 80s reference right there. Remember yo-yos, kids? This bit of technology looks like a space hopper.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of a Mechanicus guy just say it's like a yo-yo.
It's like a yo-yo. Do you remember Bullseye? And you'd attach it to heavy equipment, so something like a heavy weapon, literally heavy in italics. And then because the amount of equipment you carry used to affect your movement, this cancelled that. Right. So it meant you could walk around with a heavy bolt.
Okay. So that kind of covers a bit of it. Yeah, I'm not sure it's
not the
targeting
as
cool.
Thing. So what you do is you'd attach a targeter to it,
so
which is the next thing, which is the targeting device, which avails for more accurate shots. If you had a heavy stubber with a suspensor and a targeter, you had the smart gun.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So there you go.
So it is sort of in there. It's just it's not quite as cool as a smart gun.
Yeah, not right. I don't want to give a spoiler here, but come back to me with that once you've seen Alien Romulus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Jordan has yet to see, at time of recording, has yet to see Alien Romulus.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it looks good. That was Rob's review of Alien Romulus.
Fine, it's absolutely fine. It certainly is a film that was on the telly. It was actually on the cinema screen.
So, Space Crusade, we think there's elements there. Space Hulk, we think, Richard Halliwell, designer of Space Hulk, is obviously influenced by Aliens. There's never any sort of specific reference that I could find. I mean, there might be somewhere where they talk about, we're going to make our own version of Aliens. But it feels like that was what was happening there. And Rick Priestley's alluded to that as well.
Yeah.
That's where, we're going to explore the Aliens scenario.
Yeah.
In the 41st movie.
Dark corridor and beeps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And then we've got the Genestealers themselves, how they've evolved and they changed. I mean, I guess, Brian Ansel's Genestealer Cults takes it in a very different direction.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I wouldn't be surprised, let's put it this way, that there wasn't an Alien sequel idea floating around that would have been closer to a Genestealer cult, whether that was the Alien 3 that was going to be monks on a planet.
Yeah, very much. Aliens Getting to Earth was always the reputed one, wasn't it? There's a couple of novels about that.
Yeah.
And they're always the same.
Because you've got to assume that there's going to... I mean, an interesting story. There's kind of a shame they didn't explore it. Maybe there's a book somewhere. Or
there
a
is.
comic book,
I think it's called Earth War, actually.
Right, okay.
But
an alien cult,
yes.
essentially, right?
Yeah.
I mean, cults are very, very 40K.
Okay. I'd love a Blackstone version where you infiltrate alien, a Genestealer cult world.
Ooh, okay,
That'd be pretty cool.
That would be
Quite
really
specific, like setting and more limited enemies, but I think you've got that kind of setup there. That's pretty cool, going down into the tunnels and everything.
Speaking of Blackstone Fortress, actually, I do think the Urgles, the Dark Eldar creature guys, they've got a hint to me of Alien as well.
Yeah, they're quite like the lad from Resurrection.
The Firstborn guy again.
The Firstborn guy, yeah.
But they've got 4 nostrils.
Is he called the Firstborn?
No, I thought he was called the Firstborn.
Because that's what Marines are called now.
Wow. Full circle.
Yeah, non-Primaris Marines are Firstborn. So we're
true.
back, guys.
Let me double check this.
So what is Alien's influence on Blood Bowl?
I'm wrong. It's the newborn, not the firstborn. So it's not the same as the Space Marines.
Marines.
That's not a connection.
Right, we'll cut that one.
Unfortunately,
take that bit of. So Jordan's got this giant cork board up on the wall full of red strings pointing. So I'll have to take that one down now.
Yes. So newborn. Anybody who's stayed with us since I referenced the firstborn about an hour ago, and they were furiously shouting at the screen. Now we know. Now I know my error.
Firstborn.
Yeah. So Primaris, eh? They've got a vibe of the guys from Prometheus.
I've not seen it.
Oh, they're very tall.
Yeah, I made the correct decision of after Resurrection going, that'll do for a bit. And I didn't watch any Alien films until Romulus, actually. Are they very tall?
They're very tall.
Are they not quite Tau Earthcasty or Aircasty? Or
No, they've got more girth.
I've only seen clips of it, and actually I probably think I was watching the Chronicles of Riddick. So I don't know if I was even watching the same
Chronicles
film.
Of Riddick. Yeah, I can't wait for the Chronicles of Riddick episode.
Oh yeah, I'd have to watch it to begin with.
You mentioned before Necromunda, actually, and the sort of alienness of that, or the potential to do sort of alien stuff.
Yes.
I mean, I remember there was a Warhammer community hunt scenario a while back. It's a bit Predator, a bit Alien. You're just hunting down an Ambot. I feel like there's probably been many scenarios
definitely
in the
more
journal and stuff.
Yeah, I think White Dwarf had one where you were pursued by a creature, and they were very sort of like, it could be a Spira to keep it in universe, it could be a Genestealer, which is the one your mind immediately goes to because that's a cool scenario. That's kind of quite alien free actually, where you've got a load of gangers chasing down a Genestealer. That feels like it would be in the Aliens universe, right? Like a load of smart-ass punks being torn apart by... So I do think, Necromunda really has that grim and grimy down as well. You've got the pipes, you've got the space, I think the genius of Alien over Aliens is it's normal people, right?
Yeah.
They're not warriors.
Sure.
Mentioned earlier, they're truckers, right? And for most people in Necromunda, the game is focused on the gangs and the violence there. But even then, if they went onto a 40k battlefield, they just get annihilated immediately.
Yeah.
So you've got that kind of absolute disparity of power of one Genestealer versus a gang. And now that has been taken by Games Workshop and run with it with the new Necromunda Hive Secunda stuff, which is a hive infested with Genestealers, which is the idea that we all had as kids. Like that was the same thing.
I mean, actually thinking about it, so because obviously the franchise Alien, maybe not the greatest sequels in the world, but you have one alien versus a group of truckers, people who don't know what an alien is.
Yeah.
Aliens is then a group of people with much better technology, trained for battle, but they still don't know what aliens are.
Yeah,
and now there's loads
and are disbelieving and underestimating. Yeah.
Alien 3, you then go back to that first scenario where it's no one knows what this thing is, but there's only one alien.
Yeah.
And then Alien Resurrection, arguably the direction you could have gone, and it sort of does, but doesn't quite. But you've got a world where it's the Marines, they've got the equipment, they've got the battle knowledge, and now they know what an alien is. So they should be better equipped mentally to deal with it.
Yeah.
Obviously, the film doesn't quite sort of deliver on that. But I think if you were to put an alien or a Genestealer into Necromunda, The scenario being that there's a load of people who are battle hardened.
That's quite Resurrection, actually, isn't it? Yeah, actually, thinking about it, you've got the smart asses, you've got the Ron Perlmans. Resurrection is quite Necromunda-y almost.
I mean, the technology of Resurrection is even higher, of course, as well. So
yeah, and they're very stylized, aren't they? It's very stylistic. It's very, I'd never actually clocked that, but yeah, maybe Resurrection is a bit of a Necromunda film.
You can sort of feel it a little bit in there, maybe. Yeah,
because they are all sort of wisecrackers, and then next thing they know, they're getting their faces torn off, which would be
it doesn't go well for them.
It's terrible. But that's a good shout, actually. Maybe Resurrection's due a revisit. Alien watch.
I think the thing for me with that is that if with appropriately calibrated expectations, it's certainly not. It's by no means the worst Alien movie. And there is some fun stuff in there. Yeah. There's some cool ideas. There's a whiskey cube, which is great fun.
Yeah. A basketball bit.
There's a basketball bit that's very impressive.
What do you count the AVP films as part of the Alien franchise?
I wouldn't personally, but then I'm a big fan of headcanon generally, and I find this for movies, for comics,
Warhammer
and
40,000.
for Warhammer. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Where I'm more than happy to just cherry pick the things I like the most. And to kind of ignore anything that doesn't make sense or I don't like or just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's I would say it's a healthier way to engage 100%. With these IPs. Because besides anything else, all of the IPs, 40K especially, they contradict themselves all the time because you've got hundreds of writers over decades of work. There's no way anybody can keep it straight. You've got reinterpretations, evolutions. We just talked about how the Tyranids evolved and changed over time.
Yeah.
You can headcanon that and say that, well, that's just evolution. They've adapted
there's
as they've invaded.
Universe reason, but also there's just reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think you have to. I think headcanon is essential. I think for me, for example, Alien, the universe is Alien, Aliens, and Alien through the director's cut. Everything else, fine. They'll probably never watch it again.
Sure.
Same with Star Wars.
And that's the other healthy part of it, right? Is the live and let live. I'm sure there are people out there who absolutely adore some of the later Alien movies, who adore certain later developments in 40K lore, for instance. That's cool. Yeah. Enjoy it. If you're getting something from it, then by all means do so.
Some of the old stuff's garbage.
I'm
just not going to bother with it. That's fine.
Everything is great. Everything's terrible. So you just doesn't matter. Take the stuff you like.
Take a step back. Can I tell you my controversial opinion?
Please do.
I don't think Space Hulk's a very good game.
Whoa.
I think it was an important game and big game for the time and a step above stuff that came out at the time. But nowadays it is dull, really boring game.
So I think I have a suspicion why you might feel this way, but go on, tell us.
Well, as the Alien player, you've got two options, hide or attack.
Right.
That's it.
You can make funny noises.
Boring. It's so boring. The game is run down a corridor, wait for the Marine to roll a jam, maybe a 1, and at which point attack with everything.
Right.
Every scenario. It's so... This is a game that needs modern game design to come in and go, do you know what? This is a co-op. You don't need an Alien player. The AI can be easily done, which is done in other games.
It's done later in Space Hulk's life as well.
Yeah, Blackstone Fortress does it as well.
Sure.
Games Workshop have done it. Never mind thousands of other board games that have come out and do it better.
Yeah,
I think that is it called Death Angel? The
Deathwing?
No, the Fantasy Flight card game. I think does a better game.
Angels of Death?
Maybe it's Death Angel, Angels of Death, something like that. It's a card game and it came out in this tiny little box, and I think that gives a better feeling of Space Hulk than the board game Space Hulk, because you've got important decisions to make and they're the same decisions. If you're the Marine player, you've got to work out your facings, you've got to work out, what weapon goes in what order, because that's all you're doing. All you do is Space Hulk is go, what's my marching order? It's that bit in D&D where someone asks you your marching order, but for an hour and a half of just, right, okay, now I'll move here, now I'll turn left, now I'll put this guy on Overwatch. What are you doing? I'm counting my action points.
I mean, there's a lot more tactical decision-making for the Space Marines player.
Yeah, the Marine player's playing a game, and the Alien player just sits there going, cool, I'll wait for you to roll a jam or forget to put someone on Overwatch.
Yeah, it is Death Angel, you're dead right. And just on a tangent,
Yeah.
which we're enjoying today.
Yeah. No, focused, laser focused, like Wayland Yutani's
It's a very
profit
wide
margins.
show, this one. But the FFG sort of cardification of various Games Workshop games, I think, was a very successful project.
Yeah.
So when they took Warhammer Quest and they turned that into a card game, when they took
Team Manager,
Space
Blood Bowl Team Manager,
Blood Bowl,
brilliant game,
Warhammer Invasion,
Yeah.
there's a lot of really fun card-based versions of Games Workshop games where you still get a real sense of that world, you still get the game experience, but it's a very different kind of management, and you don't need to, you don't have models, of course.
Yeah, get your hands on Death Angel if you can. I don't know, it's probably one of those games that now goes for like hundreds or something because it's an XFFG one that's not
all of them do.
No,
I mean,
some do,
the
some
Warhammer
don't, do.
Quest, for instance, that's actually, you can get
okay.
hold of that super cheap.
Didn't they do Disc Wars? They did Disc Wars.
They did Disc Wars, that's right.
But if you can get your hands on Death Angel, do you know what? Paint up some Terminators and put them on the cards.
Sure.
If that's what you want. But it is a far better game of Space Hulk than Space Hulk is.
I mean, it is a controversial opinion. I think there's a lot of people who really do love Space Hulk. I myself adore Space Hulk when I'm playing the Marines.
Yeah, right. All right, yeah. Cool. That's why it's a good computer game. Because
you're not wrong. It is flawed. I think a solo or co-op sort of mechanisms, they enhance the game a lot.
Yeah.
I think there's later expansions that bring in lots of new options.
Once the enemies change a bit.
Yeah.
Because the difference between Space Crusade and Space Hulk is you get to fire back in Space Crusade, and that gives you options as the alien player.
Yeah.
If your options are attack at close combat or don't attack, it's a binary. The game is very binary. Whereas if it's actually, I've got a cultist here with a heavy stubber, cool, he's going to sit down the corridor and keep firing. That's what made it. The base Space Hulk is a dull game.
I mean, it's a controversial place to.
It was also written 40 years ago. It's time things move on. Maybe not 40 years ago.
1930. It was 89, 90, I think.
There we go. 34 years ago.
Yeah.
Things move on. It's fine.
Yeah, it is fine. It is fine. What doesn't move on,
right,
is our conversation about Alien and Aliens, because we're just circling that very tightly, and we're not straying.
We're not straying. We are mission focused. We are Bishop going down the little tube. All the way down, direct line. Synthetics. We haven't talked about synthetics. That's an interesting concept because there's the whole anti-AI, anti-robots that look like humans in 40K.
Yeah.
And, they're obviously very controversial in the Alien universe. There's a bad reaction when they discover that Ash is a robot.
Yeah.
And then obviously
a bad reaction.
There's a bad reaction.
Yeah.
But 40K has the whole anti-computers in the shape of a human kind of thing.
No men of iron, no men of milk either.
Or no men of milk and noodles. But that's a fun little theme that carries. I think that's also a Dune thing as well, as we've covered. But it's just another little tangent of you don't get that style of robot in the Imperium, because maybe everyone was like, oh no, they all go mad and they have to hit their heads off and then they make gross noises.
Yeah, they're pretty gross actually.
Horrible, really horrible. That's the most horrific bit of Alien. Is Ash?
Yeah,
absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, it's great though. It's a great little twist, and of course Bishop is an awesome character.
It's a great lad.
Yeah, really.
Genuinely a really good lad.
Yeah,
that's a fun twist.
That's a nice subversion.
Good.
Yeah.
He kind of looks out for the humans.
He does.
And he's good. He's not, he is the advanced model because he's like, no, I'm not going to do anything to harm you. They were, when he makes that line about them being a faulty model, he's probably not lying. He's they were rubbish,
Yeah, well, maybe Bishop's what we could have got if not for the, the rebellion and the
AI. All that stuff.
But yeah, I think that's a fair shout actually, and I think there's probably a lot more of those kind of things, as there always is with science fiction and this sort of exploring the future and the dangers of it. And 40K does do a good amount of that in lots of different ways. But I think we've probably explored only just a fraction of what Alien and Aliens have sort of brought or inspired within the 40K universe. As I say, I imagine there's scenarios in the journal. I imagine there's references throughout White Dwarf. There's probably loads of stuff that we've missed.
Definite kit bashes of the old model kits you used to get, like the Alien APC. For the longest time when you couldn't get the Land Raider. And I say for the longest time, weirdly, the original Land Raider was only out of production for actually about 5 years, it turns out. But it felt like this absolute desert of a time. Where
certainly for us, they were early hobby years where every minute lasted a lifetime.
It was like, what's a Land Raider? How do we make Land Raiders? Do you remember the guy did it have a Mark IV World War I tank in White Dwarf? It looked brilliant. It was a Deathwing Land Raider. And he just got a Mark IV World War I tank, which are the classic tank you think of, the long ones with no turret. Changed the cannon sponsors for Laz cannon sponsors, painted it in Deathwing colours. It looked fantastic.
It sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember the Alien APC appearing on battlefields as like, hey, hang on, that shouldn't be here.
There was an amazing model kit for it that was really nice as well. Yeah.
It was on my shelf while we were playing 40k.
Well, there you go.
There we go.
Yeah. So I think we've talked a bit about Alien, we've talked a bit about Aliens, we've talked about 40k, Rogue Trader, and how it's evolved over time, the Tyranids, all that sort of good stuff. Is there anything else that you would add as a parting shot?
Great soundtrack to play your games to.
Yes.
Really good soundtrack to play your games to, both 40k or if you're going to play an RPG, have the Alien soundtrack going.
That's a good idea.
Just great. What brilliant. Just music. So it's quite hard to hum, but you know it. It's great. We used to play at Games Day. I remember that. I used to play because they used to play music quite loud, and you'd have like that and the Conan theme playing.
They must have played the James Horner kind of war theme.
Yeah,
for Aliens,
like when they're getting ready and that one. Yeah, that one definitely.
That's terrific. That's great.
So good. Oh my god. Yeah, so that's what you should do. Get the music, play the games to it because then just go watch it again.
Yeah.
And then have a big argument about if you should watch the director's cut or not.
I mean, I think you should, but that's just me.
Sentry guns are back.
The sentry guns are great.
They're back in Necromunda.
Right.
The police guys can put down...
The enforcers.
The enforcers can put down automated sentry guns.
There you go. Which is an incredible moment in the movie.
Yeah. Well, I love the board game. Shout out to Gale Force 9 here, who do excellent renditions of IPs, including Spartacus and Dune. And they've done Aliens Another Day in the Core, which I really enjoy. And that has a little dial for the sentry guns, so you tick down the ammo as they fire, which is just brilliant.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Brilliant. They're learning.
That's probably going to be it for us for now. We may yet return to the Alien franchise. I wouldn't put it past us. What do you think we're going to be covering next time, Rob?
I think everyone's favourite thing in modern Warhammer is those massive knights covered in shining armour. You know the guys, I can't remember what they're called, but they're big and they're covered in gold armour, but nowadays also a bit silver. And they're like the poster child for the fantasy IP. And we all know where it comes from. We're going to be covering the film Excalibur.
Yeah, Excalibur, absolutely incredible film. Very much looking forward to it. I think there's a lot of fun stuff to explore there. Where can people find you online, Rob, if anywhere?
No, you can't.
Nowhere.
Absolutely nowhere.
Just not online.
I may very occasionally leave a comment on one of your videos.
Fantastic.
Is it? Maybe.
Yeah, well, so in which case, if you want to find Rob, then you've got to go to my channel and check out Jordan Sorcery on the YouTube. Either the Jordan Sorcery channel, where I do the history of many Games Workshop games and other tabletop stuff as well, or Jordan Sorcery Pods, where you'll find this podcast as well as other podcasts like the GW Books Club and my conversations with various designers, artists, and creators from Games Workshop past and present. So go and check it out.
This is Rob, last survivor of the podcast, signing off.